So good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Metta Centre session. And tonight we have Bhante Jāgaro coming back for not the first, not the second, but the third time to Metta Centre to give us another talk. And tonight's topic is a really interesting one. It is on maintaining composure. And in particular, Bhante will be talking about his 1 week tudong, where he visited various places in Sydney. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from him, not just about tudong, but also about how to maintain composure through that kind of wandering, and also, of course, in our own journey through our own lives as well. So Bhante will be exploring some of the challenges that he faced, what he's learned along the way as well. We'll be discussing about cultivating and maintaining inner stability amidst uncertainty, helping us to navigate the ups and downs of daily life with resilience and clarity. So, Bhante, thank you so much for coming again. Bhante, of course, is visiting from US, and I'd love to hear about your journey through the Sydney and beyond, and also about this tudong practice, which could be new for some of the people who are listening to
Sure.
So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for that introduction, Tina. And so my name is Bhante Jagaro, and I actually just got back, as Tina mentioned, a couple of days ago into at least Sydney proper. I was in the northern areas of New South Wales doing a tudong, or in local parlance, I think people call it a walkabout. And I'll explain more about how we do that as a monastic, and more about what happened, and cover some of the themes of what happened, and how that is used to develop our spiritual qualities, but also to look at it on a larger lens, how to sort of raise everybody's level of well-being and happiness. Yeah. So on that theme, why don't we start by doing some meditation? Yeah, for our well-being and for the well-being of others, right? When I remember when I first started meditating as a layperson, I was always thinking about, like, is this working? Is this doing anything? This is like, we do this, and gosh, I'm not sure if this is actually helping anything. But then I was thinking, well, at least I'm staying out of trouble for the next 15 minutes, half an hour, hour. I'm actually not bothering anybody, So for the next, how long do we normally do this for,
10, 15 minutes.
15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. For the next 10, 15 minutes, bring to the mind that at least you're not going to be bothering anybody else, okay? You're not going to harm any other living being. You're going to be very quiet, very peaceful, right? And let's see what we can do to be as kind, right, and beneficial to ourselves. Yeah. Okay. So knowing that we're actually giving safety to other beings, we're now going to try to bring safety and well-being to ourselves. Okay. So finding an upright posture, right? Getting a feel for the body, relatively upright, neck straight, but not too rigid. Rolling the shoulders back, leaning forward and back, and trying to find a suitable spot. Stability. Feeling the ground with your feet, adjusting the knees and make sure the legs are relatively comfortable. And we do this to help our bodies find a stable position. But we also do this to start to turn inwards, starting to pay attention to our bodies. How does the body feel right now? If you want, you can keep your eyes open, but I recommend closing your eyes. And if you do keep your eyes open, make a determination to keep your gaze fixed on a particular location. Now taking a deep breath in. Hold. And taking a deep breath out. Hold. Deep breath in. Hold. And a deep breath out. And hold. And do that for a few more times on your own. And then allowing the breath to resume its normal rhythm. Bring your attention just to the breathing, the way the breathing feels within the body. Allowing any concerns or thoughts or interest in anything else for these next 10 or so minutes. Just going to put them to the side. You can pick it up later. But for now, just going to be interested in the breathing. Felt sense of breathing within the anytime the mind, the attention goes elsewhere, bring it back very gently, the felt sense of breathing. No need to add anything. No need to criticize or blame, get upset, or think we're doing something wrong. Any of those, any sort of additional thinking, it's just more thinking. Bring your attention back, felt sense of breathing. Encouraging the mind to leave anything other than this felt sense of breathing, breathing going in, breathing going out, keeping everything else to the side. Any thoughts or concerns, any sights or sounds, smells or tastes, just being with the felt sense of breathing. Expanding our internal gaze to get a sense for the whole body. Take a deep breath in, deep breath out. Feel how the whole body is. The head to the neck, shoulders and arms and hands, chest and abdomen, upper back and lower back, sides to diaphragm, seat of the body, the thighs, knees and calves and shins, feet. And as we're expanding our sense of the felt body, start to tune into the sounds. Rhythm of the clock, cars, people in the room. And slowly open your eyes. Allow all the colors and shapes to come in. And take a few moments to relax your body and roll your shoulder, lean forward or back. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasam. So my name is Bhante Jagaro, as I mentioned before, and I'm going to share a bit on Dhamma, and talk also a little bit about um, the walk that I did last week. Um, was this walking that we do as monks? Well, we all walk, yes, we all walk here. You at home listening or watching online, I'm sure you walked a little bit today, yes, to get around your place. I'm making the assumption maybe some of you are in wheelchairs. You had to just maybe move around, or maybe somebody pushed you in. Yes, we had to all move to get where we are, right? Sometimes we um, cannot really think or pay attention to that too much, but the Buddha wanted us actually to be very mindful in everything that we do. Yeah, it seems so simple to say, oh, just be mindful, right? But of course, those that actually make the effort to try to be mindful, all waking hours of the day, you find, wow, I can be mindful here. And all of a sudden, my mind just zooms out. And then it comes back when somebody says, hey, be mindful. You're like, oh my gosh, what happened? I was totally not mindful. Yeah. And walking, anytime we walk, anytime we sit, let's we did some meditation, yeah. Anytime we're just standing still, and anytime we're resting, lying down, it's actually the Buddha encouraged us to be ever presently mindful of all these postures, all these conditions, right? It's, we're sitting down here, we're breathing, we're mindful, yeah. We're listening, we're mindful. But if we're standing, we're mindful of that. We're walking, moving somewhere, we're mindful of that. If we take a rest, we're mindful of that. If we get up, we're mindful. It sounds so simple, but it's important to keep doing this, to find some anchor that we can keep reminding ourselves. And this is a very important quality, right? This quality of sati, of mindfulness, is something that um, it starts to illuminate many things, but it also um, starts and persistently activates our sense of what are the things we should actually be paying attention to. In particular, things inside ourselves that, let's say, we want to do, right? Um, Sometimes we want to go here, sometimes we want to go there, right? Sometimes we want to do this, and sometimes we want to do that. And it's important for us to start training ourselves. Oh, is this a wholesome, skillful desire? Or is this unwholesome, is unskillful, right? And this is what mindfulness is. It's about starting to tune into that, right? So one of the ways that monks have um, that we practice mindfulness, we spend times in monasteries, right? We spend a lot of time meditating. We spend time living and working in a monastery. These are very conducive conditions for practicing mindfulness. But sometimes it's quite also useful to, let's say, put ourselves in unpredictable situations. Yes. And this is where the practice of wandering, or in the tradition I come out of, tudong, can be quite helpful. So now we're really starting to say, test ourselves. How is our mindfulness? Yeah. How is our resilience? How is our patience? How is our energy? Right? How is our confidence or faith in the Buddhist teaching? Right? It actually starts to really illuminate these things, right? Putting ourselves in new, unpredictable situations can really highlight these things. Yeah. So the practice of tudong, basically the word tudong is related to a Pāli word called dutanga, and the dutanga in the monastic tradition, they were certain training rules. They were extra that the Buddha encouraged his monastic practitioners to try out, to put into practice, to see if we can shut off some of our defiled tendencies. Yeah, one of these practices, for example, is the practice of only eating one meal a day. Yeah? And for the this is something that the forest masters highly, not just practice themselves, but highly encourage for monastic followers. And part of the reason, there's many reasons for doing this, but part of the reason is start to put a limit on the indulgences, right, that we can have, right? There's not too many indulgences that we have as monastics in terms of sensory indulgences. Food can be one of those things. And so by putting a box, a container around that, we can sort of limit limit the amount that we can get sucked into it, but also we can start to learn, right? We can learn about how our minds are reacting to being limited in this respect. So tudong comes from this, right? It comes from some of these extra ascetic practices that the Buddha encourages monastic followers to take on. And traditionally, it's done in the sense of, let's say, wandering. In a traditional Buddhist country, you might wander from monastery to monastery or temple to temple. You might do some wandering into, let's say, a cave or a charnel ground or a cemetery. You might go to places that are very wild, like some of the deep jungles or forests, right? And you spend time there and you spend time practicing. And you see how your mind reacts, yeah? And you see if you can sort of summon the energies to meet all these unpredictable situations you might encounter, yeah? Of course, in Western countries, I come from the United States, we don't necessarily have the same sort of environment. One of the biggest differences, of course, is it's not a Buddhist country, the United States, and most people are actually quite unfamiliar with Buddhism. They might know of the Dalai Lama. That's a might. You might be surprised here in Australia. What? People don't know the Dalai Lama? Oh yeah, a lot of people don't even know who that is too. And I haven't been here too long in Australia, but even though I was talking with Tina before, I think there is definitely, at least in the Sydney area, more Buddhism, let's say, per capita than the US. There's probably a lot of people that don't know what this is all about, yeah, what this is. And so not being from a Buddhist culture, that actually presents its own challenges, right? We don't have, let's say, in let's say Thailand, especially the older times, there are lots of, tigers or elephants and other, deadly creatures, here, of course, Australia, I would say you guys definitely have your own deadly creatures. When I was last week during my walk, I was reminded a number of times to be very careful of the brown snakes and some of your spiders, right? So that was definitely a source of mindfulness. Yeah, it was like, well, you have no choice but to pay attention as you're walking through, there might be a path there, but it's still bush, and is that a stick? Is that a vine? Is that a snake? Yeah, as you're walking, so you have to be very, very careful of where you're stepping. Yeah, when you're sitting down, pretty much I got mostly just bit by ants and mosquitoes, but there's places of spider, right? I've heard you guys have some very interesting spiders here. I haven't seen one yet, but I've definitely seen lots of spiders. I wasn't sure if any of them were particularly venomous, but I wasn't going to try to, test that. So I was, very, very careful and mindful, right? But because it's not a Buddhist country, in a Buddhist country, as a monk, you go out, people understand what you're doing. And so you can, one of the things we do, for example, to sustain ourselves with food, we go in the morning for alms, right? People know what we're doing. But in a country that there isn't that cultural context, Is there going to be any food, that day? There's no guarantee of that. I mean, there is no guarantee even in a Buddhist country, but it's definitely, let's say, a higher percentage chance that somebody's going to know who you are and what you want to offer food. So there's no guarantees. And I know from the US, being there for a long time, practicing alms, practicing going on tudong, there have been days where I didn't get offered any food. Right? It wasn't the norm, and most of the days I did get offered food, but it didn't happen every single time. So coming to Australia, I had no idea what was going to happen. Right? So similarly, it's a different sort of environment. Here in Australia, it is hot, it's quite hot here, but it's drier, right? The sun, I was mentioning that probably the hardest thing that I had to deal with, honestly, was the sun. Yeah. So after 2 days, the first 2 days, there was a lot of sun. And I think by the third day, my body was starting to like shut down from, even though I had a hat, I had an umbrella, I had sunscreen. It was just starting to get really sensitive to the sun, right? So different conditions, so different challenges you have to work with. Okay, what do you do? Yeah. So the environment will present you with certain challenges, right? And you learn how to adapt. You learn how to navigate. Yeah. So and this is all in service of starting to develop these qualities, these qualities of the heart that Buddha knew that we needed to fulfill the Buddhist training. And one of those is Khanti, or patient endurance. So Khanti is that willingness to be with discomfort, the willingness to be with adversity, and not shy away from that. Yeah, to be present to it. Yeah, be very steady. Yeah, and so you get all these throughout the day. You put this pack on, and initially, the first day it's not so bad. The second day, oh, third day, it's starting to just bite in, rub everywhere. Yeah, yeah. So it's not comfortable. The sun is not comfortable. You're tired. You're hungry. Yeah. Actually, on the second to last day, I was starting to get sick. So there's all these kind of discomforts you're starting to experience, right? And well, you can just get really upset, angry, and mope. Why am I doing this? This is stupid. I'm just gonna go to McDonald's. But you might go to McDonald's, I don't have any money, so it's not like I have really much of an out, right? It's a Buddhist monk. I just made an assumption. You do have McDonald's. Yeah, I did see McDonald's.
We do
Right?
have Macca's.
Okay.
We call it Macca's.
They call them Maccas. Okay, call them Maccas. Okay. And I know it's not called Burger King, it's called Hungry Jack.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Other qualities that you can develop, obviously, virya, energy, that willingness to, kind of put forth a lot of energy, but energy willing to go out into the unknown, to go into places, to have experiences you don't know what's necessarily going to happen. Yeah. And then, of course, it's also the sort of development that I started with of sati. And sati is this tool that we can use to be with situations, right? To be present with situations, but also not to get sucked into it. So what we just did, during our meditation, our formal meditation, let's say being with the breathing or being with whatever meditation object you're with, right? For a lot of people, myself included, it's actually quite difficult to maintain that object when you're just interacting with things. Let's say, dodging traffic or looking out for snakes, or because your attention's in multiple places, right? But the quality of sati isn't the sort of necessarily being just with us, your meditation object in a single pointed way. That is an important skill, but it's actually just keep remembering, well, what are we doing? We got to keep coming back to something, right? And that, of course, one of the basic things always want to keep coming back to is being aware, being aware, right? It's not so much you're thinking this, you're training this with formal meditation, but you're also doing it. And what that helps it helps your mind not get sucked into this or that. right? So as you experience difficult things, unpleasant things, you're trying to avoid this, and your body's hurting, and the sun's out, and then you're trying to put the umbrella out, then your umbrella falls, and the wind blows, and then, and it's like, okay, okay, just be present. Oh, it's just sensations, it's just light, it's just heat. Yeah, just keep coming back to the basics, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. And so this is between, I think I would say that the big three things that were, at least for myself, in my experience, you're really developing on tudong, you're developing kanti, developing virya, you're developing sati. Yeah. So you're developing all these really important qualities that are going to be useful in your development and hopeful fruition of the Buddhist training. Yeah. The other main thing you're doing with tudong, and I think this is definitely the case in maybe unfamiliar Buddhist countries, but it happens in both places. I haven't been to traditional Buddhist countries yet, but it's the meeting of people and giving opportunities for others to interact with you and for others to be kind and generous. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened. How much time do we have, Tina?
It's 7:40. There's also a clock over
there. A clock. Okay.
8 o'clock is where we usually have the Q&A, and
okay.
We finish at 8:30.
Okay. So I'm not going to be able to tell the whole story of what happened because it is a lot to cover, but I'll try to just cover the basics and maybe some highlights, okay? And also illustrate some of what happens in terms of interaction, okay? So I started in the Durong National Park at Wat Viradhammo. Yes, this is about 70 kilometers north of Sydney. And I left on a Saturday morning, and the very kind folks there provided me food before I left, and I headed out. Okay? And I headed east, northeast. I went to the I'm gonna have to use the phone because I don't remember all the names of things. It was like the mangrove mountain ridge or something like that. And eventually, I had one planned place I was going to stay, and which was the next day the Aloka Meditation Center, which is in Pete's Ridge, I believe. So it was a long walk, but I was planning to get there around maybe at the nighttime around 9 p.m. But during that walk, in the kind of early afternoon, there was a man who has a landscaping business. He saw me, and he stopped his van. He said, "Hey, would you like a ride?" And I was like, "Well, okay, sure." And so I got in, and he said, "Well, he introduced himself, and he said, "Well, where are you going?" And I said, "Well, I'm headed over here." So, where do you want to go? Well, I just told him you can just drive me up the road here. This is actually great. And he's like, "No." Well, of course, he was trying to get more out of me. He's like, "No, this is fine. It's fine." And we do this as a Buddhist monk. We're just trying to be very, we don't want to, pressure anybody to do more than they have to. But eventually, he's like, "Okay, I want to take you further in." So he took me. Let's see. He took me to a market because he wanted to get me something to drink. So he got me. He's not necessarily Buddhist, but I'll tell you where the kind of the wrinkle is. Central Mangrove. He drove me into there. He got me something to drink, and then he drove me to this little gas station, which was about 3 hours away. He's going to drop me off there. It was about 3 hours more of walking for me to do to get to the Loka Meditation Center. And at the end, he told me, I have a girlfriend. She's Thai. Yeah. And so he's actually, in the process of the conversation, I found that he knows a bit about monks, having been to Thailand himself. And he was like, "Oh, I think I want to drop you off here because lo and behold, I got out of the car, I saw there was this little stand outside next to the gas station. It was a little kind of like a Thai eatery, yeah. And there was his girlfriend's aunt worked there, yeah. So of course the woman saw me, and she kind of did a little bit of a double take, and I smiled and waved, and I went over off to the side to sit down and have the drink, right? She actually came out later, as I was finishing my drink, and was, very happy to see me. She introduced herself. She said she wanted to make an offer, and I said, well, maybe tomorrow if I can come back here. Yeah, I actually originally wasn't planning to go that way, right? I was actually planning to head then south. I said, well, she wanted to make an offer, so I had to change course, right? She didn't make an offering, so now I'm going to go a different direction. So also at the same time, there was another man who saw me. I want to say he was Hindu. Yeah, he's a Hindu man. He saw me, and he actually just like, I want to make an offer. He started giving me water. He gave me like, I think, coconut water, all these sorts of things. So I had the juice, the water, the coconut water sitting down. So I had just three offerings, ride, juice, from three different people. In just a course of a few minutes. So this is and of course I was going to come back the next day, but this is an example of how I didn't know any of these people, I had no idea this was going to happen. I had no idea that I was going to come back here the next day, but you leave that opportunity to happen, right? So the next day, of course, I went down to the local meditation center. After I stayed the night. I got there very early because I had this help of a ride, and that was by far the easiest night I had on the journey because it was very, very easy. I had a nice place to stay. I was able to take a shower. It was very easy day. I had a very beautiful morning. They had this little kind of shrine room to Aloka Vish. Oh, I can never pronounce it right. It's Lokateshvara.
Oh, yes.
Did I say it right? Okay, Lokateshvara. And so I got to do some meditation there. It was wonderful, very pleasant. So the next day I went out to go receive alms from this Thai lady, yeah, and she was there. I received alms, had my meal, and then I continued on. And as I continued on, sometime later the afternoon, there was another man that saw me on the road and stopped his car, honked at me, and I turned around. He said, "Hey, can I give you a ride?" I said, "Okay." So I get in, and he's there with his son, and we're going for a ride. And it turns out he started driving, and then he said, "Well, where are you going?" Well, I said, "I'm just heading east." And he's like, "Well, where's that?" Where's that? Well, I don't know. Just east, anywhere east is fine. Actually, as soon as he started driving, it's a help because this is in a car, 1 minute is like,
Yeah.
20 minutes on foot, right? So just to get in a car is a huge help, right? And so anyways, eventually he actually starts, as he's driving, he says, well, I need to, stop, and I want to get some food for my son. And we were talking with the son, and I'm telling him a little bit about what I'm doing. So when they get out, they go to the market to get some food for the son, and they come back. And the son has a question. He's like, where are you spending the night? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm just going to find a place and spend the night. What do you mean? Like, well, I was saying, well, there's this kind of forest, kind of north. What was I thinking? It was northeast of Somersby and southwest of Orimba. It looked like a good spot, or maybe I get to Orimba by the evening. I didn't know, right? And they said, the son was like, well, why don't you come to our place? And I was like, well, that's okay. I mean, I was planning, it's really okay. This driving actually was plenty helpful. And then the father was like, he really wanted, no, you should come stay. We have a guest room for you. We'll get everything set up. And I was like, well, if I do come, it'd be actually better for me to stay outside. And father was actually really didn't like that idea, but the son was like, well, you could sleep on the trampoline. That'd be great. Yeah. And I was like, and I tried to, say, well, the son is wanting to offer, so that's actually a really good thing. Yeah. So I said, okay, well, I tried to convince the father. The father really didn't want me to sleep outside. And the son was like, it'd be really cool to have a monk sleep on the trampoline. Right? Eventually convinced the father to allow me to sleep outside. So we go to their place, spend the night there. I actually just spent it under the tree. So it's much simpler. It was actually a really nice tree. Anyways, the next day, I was talking with the father, and he agreed actually, and I wasn't planning to do this because I only had a certain amount of time, like I only had a week. And I need to get down to Sydney because I had a talk yesterday to do. But he said, well, um, if you give me a ride up to where's this? Sorry, I just keep forgetting all these names. Um, no, Morrisett, that's it. If you give me up to Morrisett, then I'll be able to go to this other monastery called Viradhammo. He said, I could take you up there. Yeah. Okay, well, let's do it. So originally I was planning just to head east to the coast and to the central coast and then down. But because of these two unexpected things, one, the ride from the first day and the ride from the second day, I now fully changed plans. And now I'm going to this other Thai monastery, staying a night there. I met the monks there. They were very, very kind and gracious. Met the community there. They helped out with a lot of things. And so now I had a totally different track. Yeah. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of idea of the different kinds of people, but also a flavor of how it's important when we're doing this, allowing things to unfold in a natural way, in a way that's unexpected, in a way that sort of allows, I don't want to say nature to take its course, but to allow for spontaneity, allow for sort of unexpected things to happen. Yeah. And so because when this happens, it gives an opportunity for people to feel like, oh, I want to help. Yeah. Because a lot of times, and I've noticed it's less here in Australia, but it's much more present in the US. People have their guards up, or people are closed off. You walk around and people are just like literally trying to ignore each other, right? And I understand why we do this. I mean, I even do this sometimes as a monk, depending on where I'm going, what's happening. But it's actually not a pleasant thing to ignore people. Not a pleasant thing to like almost like if I don't want to do this, but I'll just do this just to kind of show, like put a hand in front of, yeah, it's kind of doesn't feel good. But we do this. And one of the ways of starting to maybe dissolve some of this is to actually be genuine and put ourselves in situations that reveal some amount of risk and vulnerability, right? And I'm not suggesting people, go play in traffic or something like that, but I mean, I kind of did in some ways, but people can tell when you're not doing the scripted thing, when you're not doing a safe thing, and they do pay attention at that point. And that's when they start to open up themselves. Yeah. So this is part of the reason for monks to put ourselves a bit on the edge, so to speak, because people can start to feel that, and you give the opportunity for people to generate. There's also an opportunity for people to find out about what we're doing. Yeah. So I'll give you an example of this. This was later on. This was the second to last day I was out, and I was getting close to Sydney. I was, let's see, where was I roughly? I'm not going to tell you the exact place. I don't even remember because it was at night.
Milson's Point.
No. I'm going to guess this was probably around Wherrywood or Narrabeen. I can't remember where, but this is north of Sydney. Second day out. So second to last day out. Anyways, I'm walking down the roads at night, and I decided to really kind of make a kind of charge at night on the second last day because I was still quite a ways away from Sydney, and it was actually a lot easier for me to walk at night. I mentioned before I was really getting affected by the sun. So when I was walking on this, it's not a highway, but just like a very busy multiple lane road. There's a car that pulled up next to me. A young man jumped out. He was and he said, "Hey, the Buddhist monk," and he, are you really a Buddhist monk? And he was really excited to see me. So we started talking. Turns out he was driving with his girlfriend. And he had all these questions, and there's a lot of them were just kind of like, wow, like, what are you doing? And is that pack? And like, how do you, what's that thing you're holding? Is my alms bowl? And like a lot of people think the alms bowl is like a drum, yeah. It's not a drum, it's an alms bowl. And so he had all these sort of questions, really, really curious. And then he actually wants to get a picture with me. Yeah. So I go, let's go to your girlfriend and take a picture. And so I actually ended up talking with her, because she had a lot of questions. And so I ended up having like I don't want to say an hour, it was about half an hour long conversation on the side of this busy road at night. They could have been going to a party. I have no idea what, but they want to talk to this Buddhist monk. And he was somebody that had done meditation before, actually quite a bit, and then stopped doing it for whatever reason. And then he was like, well, how can I start this back up again? Yeah. And so he asked for advice. How can I do this? I actually just suggested he go to like check in with his university, and they probably have a meditation practice group or a Buddhist group. I don't know if they all do, but I'm guessing they would. Maybe check out a monastery. Yeah. Hey, I should have mentioned your organization. I know. Sorry.
Business card.
I know. You should have took some. Actually, I was thinking about that a long time ago. Should I have some business cards? But in any case, I got a picture from then. I actually I did a blessing chant for him because he actually wanted to give me a ride, but he couldn't because his car was full of stuff. I guess they went surfing or something. It was like totally packed with stuff. But I always, whenever someone makes any sort of offer, I always try to acknowledge that. It doesn't matter if it happens or not. The point is to acknowledge that generous spirit. Yeah. And so this is a person, not Buddhist, doesn't, was just very curious, a young person, not your typical person that maybe would come to a monastery. Surfer?
Surfer dude.
Surfer dude, yeah. Surfer dude, surfer gal, yeah. And another person, actually was the last day. It was a man who I was stopping to rest. This was actually just before I got into downtown Sydney. I actually mentioned this man yesterday on my talk, but he just saw me and smile. I said, I usually wave when people smile or look in my direction. And so what is this? What are you doing? And it's like, well, Buddhist monk. It's like, yeah, I can tell that, but how long you been doing this? And I said, well, I've just been doing this traveling thing for a week, but I've been a Buddhist monk for 10 years. And he obviously wanted to talk, so I told him to have a seat on the bench next to me, and we ended up talking this one was a long conversation. I want to say this was about an hour long conversation. He just had all these questions for me. And at the very end, he was like, I just want to tell you, this has been a very, very helpful conversation for me. And I could tell you, so a lot of times people are thinking about things in their life. They're maybe ready for some sort of change. They're trying to get a sense of like where you've been. And I told them, just my arc of, how I got interested in Buddhism when I became a monk, got interested in Buddhism because of dukkha, became interested in becoming a monk because of gratitude, largely. And this gets people thinking in their own lives, right? Gets them kind of going, a lot of times people will want to talk to you because they're already ready to make changes, right? And they just need that somebody else to kind of get a sense for what this can mean, right? A lot of times, any sort of significant change in our life, whether, could be like, say, a new job, moving to a new country, maybe leaving a relationship, maybe taking on a new relationship, who knows, right? All of these big changes are people will have reservations for. Oh, I can't do this. It's too big. Not know about this. It doesn't matter what it is, right? And truthfully, this is all just mentally created. We create our own obstacles. Yeah. It's you know, what I did was the walking I did was more than the usual walking that I do during the day, but it's no different from the walking I do. Okay. I came in from this door over here, the Metta Center, or the university or the room where we do the Metta Center thing. I walk from here to here. There's no difference in the walking. The sitting down is no difference in the sitting down I was doing on this last week. Yeah. And just for like for you, the walking that you'll do and whatever if you decide to take on something new, we know different than the walking you'll do. We know different than the sitting you'll do that, or the stand or the lying down. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to, really kind of impress upon people one of the reasons why I do these sort of things. Obviously, I'm doing this for my own spiritual development. I'm doing this to give other people a chance to be generous, to find out more about Buddhism. But I also do this to encourage other practitioners to take on the next step of whatever you think you need to do. You know in your heart things you're like, oh, I don't really know about that, or and I'm not saying you should, do a tudong. I mean, if you want to do a tudong, that's great. Actually, Tina and I were talking about she's organizing something like this, and I was like, wow, okay. But you don't have to do a big kind of walkabout, but you will know of things that maybe you're kind of resistant, right? You've been resisting for a long time, and sometimes these things can be really small, right? Maybe it's just it's like I'm just gonna like go on a diet, I'm not gonna eat that dessert that I always have every single day, or I'm gonna finally quit smoking, or I'm going to actually make this commitment to meditate every single day, you know? A lot of people, you do meditation, right? But it's not a consistent practice. What if you just make that commitment? I'm just going to do this every single day, no matter what. 5 minutes, no matter what. Even if I'm late for work, if I get fired, even if my wife or my husband leaves, I'm going to do that 5 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It might be something like, I don't, everybody's different, but you can feel there's something in your heart that you've been kind of pushing off, right? For myself, part of the reason I wanted to come here and visit Bhante Sujata, because it's actually been something in my heart for a long time that I've been wrestling with and not sure how to approach, what to do. And that actually involves speaking to others, right? It's not actually this particular talk I'm giving, but it is involved sharing something that I feel needs to be shared, but I haven't figured out a way of doing that. As a monk, we're often trained to, just focus on your own practice. Don't make trouble. But this something I've been reflecting on for a number of years. I realize, not that I know I need to do something. And it's scary. Yeah. There's a fear of maybe making a mistake, doing something wrong, really adverse consequences. But it's okay. Yeah. That needs to be done, right? So, anyways, I hope this Dhamma talk can give you some ideas of why monks we do these wanderings, give you some encouragement for taking on additional practices, or more importantly, starting to let go of things in your own life and you need to let go of. Yeah. And to just encourage everybody to be kind to everybody that you meet, human, animal, right? Start to maybe not do this so much anymore. Yeah. I get it. I get it why we do it, but it's not good for us. It's not good for us. Yeah. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Bhante. Thank you for taking us on a journey, telling us the story of your journey.
Yes.
And I hope that this talk inspires all of us to not only take that walk, but also to, as you say, put down those boundaries, open ourselves up and see what it is that we may be resisting and just do it and confront that and do it. So thank you, Bhante. Now we're going to open up the discussion for Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop your hand up, or if you're online, you could also pop the question into the chat. Bhante, to start us off, we've got someone who asks, are bhikkhunis also able to go on a tudong journey?
Yes, yes. And actually, I was just talking with Tina. No, not Tina, sorry.
Ruini?
Ruini, did I get there? I might say Ruini, about that. Or was it, yeah, was it Ruini? I think it was Ruini who asked me that question. And yes, the answer is yes. The last one I know of, oh gosh, I forgot her name. There's a bhikkhuni from Belgium. She did a tudong, actually in the US, in Oregon and Washington. And so yes. Actually, I do want to say, there's one of those things that I wish I had more of a scholastic like memory of the suttas or in the Vinaya, but I have this memory of the Buddha or somebody encouraging bhikkhunis to actually go wandering at least sometimes, or like get out of the monastery. There was something about that. I guess there was, some bhikkhunis, or maybe a lot of bhikkhunis that didn't want to, they wanted to, of course, there was a different cultural context back then. But there was actually encouragement for them to, leave the monastery at least once a year. Yeah.
Thank you, Bhante. Now, earlier when we were talking prior to you coming online, you were talking about some of the dangers of tudong.
Sure.
And one of the dangers was actually cars. Who would have thought? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so what would be, and I think you said that there was potentially a story out of that too during this time when you had a dangerous encounter.
No, actually, so this journey, I didn't with cars. I would want to say thank you, Australia. Your drivers are, relatively speaking, compared to the U.S., more conscientious than the U.S. You can it's hard to explain, but you can kind of tell how the other cars are kind of treating you, like on the road, whether they're paying attention or not. But there's definitely much more of an awareness of and I also try to avoid walking on roads where there's not much of a leeway or buffer aside. Yeah, by far, cars are going to be the most dangerous thing you're going to be dealing with if you're monastic doing something like this. Or I would say maybe the next most, I can't speak for Australia, I'll just speak for the US. The next most dangerous thing would probably be exposure to elements. It depends the time of year and where you are. Like as an example, like when I was in the Northeast, I didn't do any long tudongs there, but just doing like either short, like 1 or 2 day tudongs. I did short ones because it was so cold. We're talking, well below zero, well below zero. And at that point, it's quite easy to hurt yourself if you, don't do the right thing. And I wasn't quite confident in terms of my own sort of skills and navigating that to just, I'm just going to go out for 2 weeks and, be on my own. So I would say exposure to elements probably the next biggest thing. And if I were to guess here in Australia, something similar, in terms of like, I mentioned the sun. It's maybe not a short-term exposure risk, but definitely cancer in the long run, right? But you guys have some interesting poisonous creatures here, so I was keeping an eye out for that, but I didn't run into any. But I would imagine that would definitely be a risk depending on where you are.
Have you encountered our drop bears yet?
Drop bears? What are those?
It's an Aussie joke about koalas.
Oh no, I didn't see any koalas. No.
We'll have to take you somewhere to see.
Okay.
Bhante, we have another question from someone.
Yeah.
So Bhante, when you were talking about resisting things, how do you know if you're resisting something based on intuition and your gut feeling telling you not to do it versus it's being you just being guarded or being fear driven?
Can you say the question? I didn't quite follow.
Yeah, so just rephrase it in a different way. So in terms of resisting things, sometimes we resist things because our intuition is telling us that this is not the right thing to do, or
sure.
it may be something that isn't good for us.
Sure, yeah.
As opposed to resisting what you were saying in terms of resisting because we're feeling guarded or because it's fear driven.
Yeah. So this is where mindfulness and wisdom are really important. It's also really important to talk with a wise teacher, companion, get some outside input. Yeah. So this is why, as you start to practice more, you get a sort of sense of what are, let's say, desires based in sensuality, what are desires based in like comfort or greed, right? Or I don't like this person. I don't like. You get a sense for what that feels like versus maybe desires that are more kind of wholesome or skillful in nature. Like, I don't want to do that because that's going to hurt somebody, right? Or that's going to break a precept or things like that. So you have to start to weed that yourself. So the fear is just because it's fear is not necessarily going to tell you, because you can have a fear for, let's say, breaking the precept, or you have a fear because, I don't want to experience that unpleasant feeling, right? So you have to start to discriminate between those two.
Bhante? Yes, Rumi.
Hi, Bhante.
Hi.
Thank you for a really interesting talk. A few of what you mentioned, there was one main trigger for me. This thing about Khanti, I really struggle with it. Now, I know the Buddha encourages us to try it ourselves. And last week, a couple of days, I was really sick. But one day when I had fever, I don't think it was very high fever. I tried this concept of patience and to be mindful. And I switched off the fan that was going. And I didn't even last probably 30 seconds. Like I tried to be with that, hotness, that discomfort. And it was impossible. So
you did it for 30 seconds though. No, I'm serious. I'm not joking. You did it for 30 seconds. Yeah? Good.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes. It was so hard because like when you mention about, the heat and hungry and tired, maybe earlier on I would have just listened to it in a more theoretical way. But like when you're describing it, I'm literally, so I was also listening to Dhamma talks and stuff like that while I was sick. I just put down everything. I stopped listening to the Dhamma because my head felt really too heavy. But I really struggled with that, like turning off the fan and trying to be patient. And I thought, no, Buddha can't have we're meant to keep our sati during time when we're really sick as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I think that story is great because you're willing to turn off the fan and you're willing to try it. And you're like, whoa. No, that's good. No, I'm not exaggerating. I'm saying that's really good that you're willing to try it. That's you might have an expectation that you would have just been fully quantumous, peaceful, and you would just, rising sensations, falling sensations, and
something like that.
Yeah, okay. So yes, your mind, when it's ready, when you have the requisite other conditions to meet it, it will be able to do that. But you need all those other supporting factors to come in. But that there was that willingness to be that confident, there's that heroic effort that was Virya. No, that's because you're exercising that. Mm-hmm. That's the point, right? It maybe didn't work out the way you expected it to, but do you think okay? So I'll be candid with you. I'll give you an example of what happened with me. Sinsen, are you on the call? Was he on the call? I thought I heard him.
No.
Yes,
I was-
he's there.
Okay, so Sinsen's here. So Sinsen, on the last day, when I finally got to the, my goal was to get to the opera house in Sydney. That was my end point. Okay, and I did. I finally got there. Okay, it's around 8 o'clock at night, and Sinsen actually gave me an opal card. Okay, and it turned out when I tried to use it, it actually had a negative balance on it.
Sorry, Bhante.
No, it's not Sinsen's fault. This is my fault. I picked the wrong opal. He actually gave me 2 of them, so I picked the wrong one that didn't have any credit on it. So I was talking to Sinsen on the phone, and he was like, "Oh, I'll just pick you up." And I was like, "Are you sure?" Like, first I was trying to discourage him from doing it, and then he was like, "Okay, I'll pick you up here." Then I'm like arguing with him back and forth, like, "No, I don't think you should pick him. You should pick you up over here." And I'm like kind of going back and forth. And he eventually comes over. He finds me, and he's like, "Oh, Bhante," and he's very polite, and I'm just like, "Hey." Because at this point, I was just like, yeah, at the kind of the context for myself. When I got to the opera house, I was like ready to put down my bag, put my bowl, get my little Buddha rupa up, and just now. But actually, the opera house was like the worst place to go to on a Saturday night for anybody that actually lives in Sydney. I don't live here, so I don't know what it's about. There's like tons of people around. There's a whole concert. I'm like, oh my God, this is the wrong place for Buddhism. So I'm starting to get in a really lousy mood. Right? I'm getting grumpy, right? I'm getting irritated, right? Yeah. And then because of my interaction with Sinsen, I was like, oh, I lost the plot. I totally lost mindfulness. I lost, resilience, presence. Yeah. Yeah. Does that make sense? Do I regret not going on this or playing forth the Of course not, right? So you make a mistake, right? We apologize. I apologize to Sinsen. Yeah. And then we pick ourselves up, we try again. Yeah? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
don't be afraid. Maybe next time try something in the middle between complete comfort and I don't know how big your fever was. If I can tell you one other story, I'd actually kind of visit a lay center. As a lay person, there was one time, I was like, I was trying to be, I was practicing Buddhist at this point. I was trying to be really mindful, and I was going for a walk, and there's a lot of mosquitoes around, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna be mindful. And as the mosquitoes were biting me, I was like, okay, just be mindful. And I was like, some part of me was like, it's like, we got to let go of everything. We got to let go of the body. We got to let go of being attached to pleasant and even painful feelings. I'm just gonna walk even slower. Some of us walking even slower. All these mosquitoes are just ravenously coming at me, and I'm just gonna walk even slower. And eventually, I just say, I'm just gonna stop. And I stopped, and all these mosquitoes. And then something inside of me just kicked me forward because that it was just over the top. And so anyways, I remember after I left, I got on a bus ride. I was literally sick from all these mosquito bites that were bitten me, And I remember thinking about it afterwards. It was like, okay, maybe that wasn't the best thing to do. But there was a willingness to try. Yeah. Does that kind of make sense? So that was the positive part of that experience. And that's why I want to emphasize for you, focus on that positive part. The positive part was that virya, that heroic willingness to practice bhante. Yeah? Okay. Good.
Thanks for sharing that excellent story. Both of the stories are fantastic.
Yeah.
And someone online said the conversation, this is the opera house conversation,
Yeah.
is really resonating for her at the moment, because when she's at home, I'm someone who really values peace and quiet, especially when I'm tired after a day of work. Lately, I've had kids playing and screaming fairly loudly right outside my apartment. I've noticed I'm feeling irritated by it. So Bhante, how do we deal with that when we're living in an environment and the noise is beyond our control, but it's there and it's disturbing?
The noise, I assume this noise is like a frequent reoccurrence.
Well, it seems like this is just not generally.
Not generally?
Yes.
Okay. So you really like your peace and quiet, and then occasionally you have this noise that comes.
And it's starting to be more frequent.
Starting more frequent.
Besides moving, any other options?
Right. Well, you come to a Buddhist monk, you're going to get the Buddhist answer. This is actually, I know you're going to hear this, but I'll just say this is an opportunity. It really is. Yeah, I know you didn't want to hear that, but it is. It isn't. I can assure you, it's not going to kill you to listen to this. I can't predict a lot of things, but that one I'm really confident it's not going to actually kill you. Okay, so have some confidence in that. I'm not saying you're necessarily going to be successful at being equanimous when you try to practice with it, but it's important, just like as the previous question answer, it's important to try. Yeah. And how do we try? Right. So there's two ways you can to kind of practice with it. And well, one of them is just to try to practice meditation when this is happening. Right. For some people, that's actually a helpful thing because it actually gives them something to do. They have an object whenever their mind goes, if there's a noise, they just come back to it, right? That can be one way of practicing with it, right? Another thing you also consider doing is you can almost, how do I say this? You can use, like, just like you would with your meditation object, you just try to pay attention to something very simple. With things like sight, sound, and other stimuli, there's a whole process involved. The process, you could say, is detailed in the where the Buddha called it independent origination or paticca, but it may be a very brief way of looking at this is that our minds go out to meet, let's say in this case, the sound, that there's some sort of sound that starts to do something, and then we start to have layers of cognition that understand it. Yeah? But the initial meeting and hearing is actually pretty basic, and there's not actually a lot going on there, especially in terms of dukkha, right? The dukkha really happens later on. It happens later on, particularly when the mind starts to recognize what it is. It starts to dislike it, right? There's relationships around attachment, whether it doesn't want it to be there or not. So one of the things we can start to do is when we hear a sound, so can we just hear, what is this sound? What is it? Just on a really basic level. Like I can hear this ticking right here. There's a clock ticking. You guys can't hear because it's too far away. But maybe you hear the air conditioning. Right? But just on a basic level, what does that sound like? Yeah. Just real basic, right? So the clock ticking, the tick, 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 has a more kind of clunkiness to it. And the whir of the air conditioning has a more smoothness to it. Yeah. So now if you start to like really kind of tune into it, you're starting to like pay attention to the sound at a more basic level. For those that are familiar with like computers, you look at the screen, there's not, I don't know these people. Nikki is not actually there, right? It's a representation of Nikki here, right? Hi, Nikki, right? And there are these little tiny dots on the screen, right? And these little tiny dots have different colors, right? And different intensities. and that comes out and hits you, right? But Nikki's not actually there, right? Yeah? We're just seeing little representations that our mind at some point later is picking up on that. But if we're actually paying attention much more closely, we can start to see those dots. Same way in the sounds, if you pay attention closely, you can start to hear those little fragments, those different sound types. Yeah. So that's another way we can start to practice with something, let's say that irritates, you're actually going into it, so to speak. So yeah, so maybe try those two things out. Either try to practice just meditation, right, with it. So you just do what you normally do during meditation. The other way is actually just turn towards it and really try to hear it very closely, very intentionally. Okay, give those things a try. Sure.
The problem which I personally have is, like, I hear to so many talks like this and many things like, which are really good. But only thing is, I don't remember that. Like, as long as I remember them, maybe I remember for 1 or 2 days, that's it. From third day, it's like, it happened yesterday afternoon. I was doing work from my home and I was sucked into one of the problem that I was facing, and I was so stressed out that at the end of it, I could not solve the problem. And I did a lot of stress eating, and it went haywire. If I had even remembered one of the talks which I remember, that would have helped. But literally, that thought never occurred to me.
Yes.
Mindfulness, any of it.
Yes.
So how to do that? I can't hire an assistant to constantly remind me, right? So how to manage?
Well, let me ask you a question. If you had, let's say, a life-threatening disease, and this life-threatening disease required that you take this pill once every 4 hours while you're awake, how would you do that?
That's the problem. Like, out of 24 hours, even if I miss it for 2-3 minutes, the damage occurs in that 2-3 minutes.
Okay, but just that an example I gave you, what would you do? You have to remember to do something every 4 hours.
I will put an alarm clock on.
What if your alarm clock doesn't go off? This is a life-threatening, like you miss one, that's it.
Okay.
What would you do?
Then I will ask somebody like you to ask for a solution.
You're gonna hire mine. But seriously, come on, you're a smart guy. You can answer the question.
That's a good question.
The life is on the line. Come on, you can do this.
Then I have to force myself to remember that every.
Well, you're gonna okay. That's part of it, and you're gonna have the alarm clock. And what else? What else are you gonna do?
Talk with a friend to call me every 4
Okay,
hours.
you're gonna get help. Good. Keep going. What else are you gonna do?
I probably write it and post on my wall.
Good. You're gonna start to be creative. Maybe put some reminders. There you go. Keep going. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with practice. The thing is, so you know how if people come to the Buddhist temple, monastery, and for people that come, for those that remember, we give homage to the Buddha. We take refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Do you remember hearing that? Yeah, I take refuge in the Buddha. Just saying that by itself isn't going to do anything. If we're taking refuge in the Buddha, what are we doing? We have to think about that. That means I'm going to take the Buddha, whatever that means to you. For some people, it could mean quite literally the historical Buddha. For other people, it can mean maybe like awareness itself, what that potential for awakening. It doesn't matter what it is, right? I'm going to take that as my refuge and not, I don't know, anger or fear or my cell phone. Doesn't make sense. You're going to elevate that to a higher space than everything else. So the reason why I asked you that question around, let's say, what would you do if you had a life-threatening illness? You do know what the answers are. You just haven't quite lifted, let's say, mindfulness or the Buddhist practice, the Buddhist teaching up to that very high level. That's what you need to do. if you lift it up to that, I got to do this, I'm going to do this no matter what, you'll figure out what to do. Okay. So now the question is, how can you do that? How can you lift it up? And for me, I don't think in the US at least, there's kind of like this thing of people love to argue and criticize other people. And I think part of the reason, and I'm guilty of this too in my past, I probably will still do it to some extent in the future, but it's this sort of thing where we go, maybe if I criticize this person enough, they'll do the right thing. And we do this to ourselves, right? And that does something, but it's not usually, I found, a very good motivator. I've actually found in my own life things like appreciation and gratitude to be better motivators. Thinking, like one of the things that actually, to be honest, what motivates me to, let's say, do a tudong. I was telling, I forgot who I was talking to today, but I was saying that, I don't actually have a lot of love for seeing these scenic, majestic, things. I mean, there's a lot of beautiful things here in Australia, and I saw a lot of beautiful things, but I'm not like one of these typical backpacker outdoorsy people that go, wow, look at this. I actually, generally speaking, could care less, I usually take the photos just to share with other people because I know they like it, right? But, by temperament, I'm just kind of like, actually, I kind of like this from you, to be honest. This is kind of cool. I'm like, let's just stand there, I'm in the gadgets and stuff like that. So it's actually knowing that, oh, I think there are people that would appreciate me doing this. That's actually what motivates me. So I'm giving you as a kind of an idea of maybe there's things that can help you motivate yourself, right? To lift up the Buddhist teachings, right? Maybe it's not the traditional things like that you've been exposed to. So that's why we have to start being creative. What are ways that we can raise the Buddha or his teachings or the practice in a way that is it actually lifts our heart in a way that really makes us want to go out of our comfort zone. Yeah. And the only way we're going to know is just by trying stuff, talking with people, getting different ideas, right? But I do understand, the challenge, right? And it's a normal challenge. We forget constantly. But the key part of this, we got to find some way of lifting us up and making it more important than other things. Hopefully that helps. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much, Bhante. Excellent talk, and then the discussion and answering all of our questions, not just in terms of the physical tudong, but also in terms of our daily life and practice as well, and inspiring us to continue as well. Someone has said, I keep a Buddha that Tina and Zen gifted me on my headboard as a constant. That's nice too. So,
Could you please repeat that?
oh, someone was just saying that they have a little Buddha as a constant reminder. So you can have different things around the place, sticky notes. I know a friend of mine who has post-it notes everywhere to remind her about what she needs to do. Yeah. Whatever's needed.
Monks do this too.
Yeah? Sticky notes?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, Venerable, thank you again so much for coming and sharing the teachings and also coming to the shores of Australia, going on Tudong and seeing our sites. It's really inspiring to know that people from other countries will do that in a foreign place. And it's good to know that the Aussie drivers are safe and that all the government's messaging about slow down when there's pedestrians and cyclists, that it actually works. Continue to protect monastics as well. So thank you again, Venerable. Thank you everyone for all your participation and questions. This Wednesday, we have Venerable Eileen Barry, who will be coming on to give a talk, and that is at Parramatta, and she'll be leading the meditation class. She is fantastic. She's really authentic. She's kind, and she's always got great tips for Buddhist practice. And the title for her session is called Meditation on the Cushion and Into Our Life. And to continue the theme of meditation as well, we have Venerable Vimoka doing an urban retreat next weekend as well. So you may remember Venerable came not too long ago, and he's back again to do part 2. So highly recommend that. And that's a free retreat, and it's in the city. All of that information is on our website. And we earlier, Taylor already said that I am hoping to organise a tudong or maybe a multi-day walk. So if anyone is interested in that, please let me know. I would like to get some ideas from everyone. What would you be interested to do? How many days? It'll be obviously a beginner's walk, nothing like what Bhante has done. We won't be hitchhiking either. And probably something that is more in the parks as opposed to on the roads. So if you are interested, then stay connected with us at the Metta Centre. We'll be planning this possibly sometime this year, maybe end of the year. We'll let you know. So thank you again, everyone. And maybe, Venerable, we can end the session with dedication of merits.
Sure,
Thank
sure.
you.
Actually, I just want to maybe this isn't kind of a personal thing. Just want to share my, because I won't be, I think this is my last time at the Metta Center. I just want to share my appreciation for coming here and being graciously and generously welcome and meeting all the people here, and also getting a chance to reflect on Dhamma, right? Because it's actually helpful for whether, it doesn't matter who's doing the teaching, or whoever the teacher is, to get a chance to reflect on Dhamma. Because sometimes we will say something, and it sounds funny. We'll try to answer a question, and we're like, hey, that's a really good answer. Maybe I should try to do more of that, right? So this actually it's a mutually beneficial thing. So, and I also want to say, if there's anything that I might have said that is you found not helpful, or maybe you found it rude or offensive, I just ask for you to put that aside and forgive me. And, so.
Good all. Thank you.
Huh?
Meredith?
Oh, dedication of merit. Oh, okay. You want me to give a chant, the dedication of merit chant?
Oh, then we could dedicate Meredith as well.
I wasn't really.
Whatever way.
I wasn't really sure what you meant by
That's okay.
I can do you want to do the dedication of merit chant?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I don't remember like how the English. I have to look it up.
No,
yeah.
that's totally fine. We could also just end.
Oh, okay. No, but I can do some sort of chant.
Okay, yeah.
Why don't we do some sort of chant? Okay, I'll just do some sort of chant. I'll do an animal. This is it is again one of the chants that we do, that monks do, monastics do when we receive an offering. Sambarogo nimuto sambasanda bhavajito sambaveramati kanto nebuto jatavambhava sabitiyo vivajanti sambarogo vinasatu mate bhavat Vandaraya sukiri ga yuko bhava haviva annasiri sanechang buddha pachaino cha maro dhamma varanti ayuvanno sukham
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Bhante. And Bhante, I don't think this will be the last time that we'll meet, because we also have speakers who join us online as well. So
okay.
I hope you stay connected with our Metta Centre community, and wherever you go back to the States, please know that you have many friends here at the Metta Centre in Australia.
Thank you so much. Yeah. This is it's a lot of fun, and for those online, you ever, I don't know where you are, but if I ever do see you, please, if you do see me, please let me know so I can say hello.
Thank you, Bhante. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining.